Throughout the show, the creators introduced many ideas that later turned out to be impractical, so they ended up abandoning them. Some of these things were so powerful, they'd have ruined the entire story every time. Sometimes the change was explained in-universe, and other times they simply stopped talking about it, hoping viewers would forget. So, let's take a look at the things the creators brought into the series and later decided to quietly let go of. And of course, we have to talk about the Zat Nicotel. So let's just get it out of the way so we can move on to the more interesting stuff. Now, we all know that the third shot from a Zat Nicotel disintegrates the target. In the episode 1969, it even disintegrates an entire crate full of weapons. But they stopped using that ability later on, because it was just too overpowered. Even the cast joked about it.
I thought it was the dumbest weapon ever invented by sci-fi. 1-shot stuns, 2 kills, 3 makes it disappear. The reason why the weapon had this magical ability was because in the episode of which it was discovered, we were knocking out all these guards on this spaceship and all the bodies were lying around. Somebody, I guess, addressed it with saying, well, isn't somebody going to discover these bodies? And the guy went, oh, well, yeah, 3 shots makes it disappear.
With that kind of tech, you could melt the rock someone's hiding behind in a firefight, carry out the perfect assassination with no body left behind, or dissolve any locked door. The number of situations where a Zat Nicotel could have been used to solve problems is endless. Seriously, it has 1,001 uses, possibly the biggest game changer since the invention of the Swiss Army knife. I'd carry one with me everywhere. The writers clearly realized this, so later on, they just stopped mentioning the third shot altogether. Same with the first shot, it was supposed to knock someone out instantly, but only when it suited the script. If a scene needed a bang unconscious moment, it worked, but if the main character wasn't supposed to pass out, they simply didn't. In early episodes, Apophysis guards could take a full barrage from an assault rifle at close range. It took several hits to bring them down. Later though, Jaffa dropped like flies in a battle. Sure, the military introduced the P90 and better ammo, but that doesn't explain a scene where Daniel takes down a fully armored Jaffa with a few shots from a handgun. Then there were the staff weapons. Early on, a staff weapon could blow apart a thick stone wall. A very thick stone wall. O'Neill's hand covers maybe a third of it, and my hand in the same position is about 6.5 inches. So 3 hands wide makes it over 1.5 feet of solid rock, completely obliterated. Later, we see O'Neill take a direct hit to the chest and survive, thanks to new armor plates designed at the SGC. If we accept the idea that these plates can absorb a blast capable of breaking through 0.5 meter of stone, and somehow protect the rest of your body, including your exposed head and neck, then fine. But let's compare that to another scene when Earth's P90s are being demonstrated to the free Jaffa. In this one, Carter proves that human weapons are stronger than staff weapons. So the Jaffa bring out a champion to show their strength, using a piece of wood on a rope, versus the wall-destroying staff weapon. Okay. And don't even get me started on Braytak's staff machine gun. In the episode Prometheus Unbound, Vala Maldoran, who was once host to the Gua'uld Katesh, shows that former hosts can learn to use a Gua'uld healing device. And that's something I know I would want. In SG-1, there were 2 former hosts, Carter and O'Neill. If this had always been possible, why didn't they take a healing device on every mission? For one example, Dr. Fraser might not have died if Sam had just pulled out that piece of tech and healed Wells from SG-13 in 5 seconds. So many battlefield or medbay deaths could have been avoided. It's weird no one made a bigger deal out of this. In Fair Game, in Season 3, Episode 3, Carter even heals Cronus from the verge of death. There's just no good excuse for not using the healing device more often, especially off-world where there's no infirmary or access to medical facilities. Same goes for the Gua'uld hand device. It could have been really useful in all kinds of situations, but the writers introduced these things, then never really explored them, which is a shame. A funny thing I only realized while working on this video, SG-1 carries around a guy who speaks 23 languages, only to discover the entire universe speaks perfect English. At the beginning of the series, communicating with the people of Abydos was a major part of the story, but the idea of spending the first 20 minutes of every episode watching Daniel figure out how to talk to people, that must have terrified the writers, and honestly, I don't blame them. So they explained it by saying that most planets were colonized by Earth's ancestors, thanks to the ancients. And even if that made some sense with modern English, which it doesn't really, other species with no Earth origin also spoke English fluently. Why? I mean, obviously because it would be extremely impractical otherwise. Occasionally, if the story needed it, someone would speak a different language, so Daniel had something to decode. Some races had a kind of side language thrown in for flavor, but when it came to talking with SG-1, everyone switched to their best English. Here's another little slip. When Jack is being tortured by Baal and revived repeatedly in the sarcophagus, his clothes are still ripped and full of holes. But Apophis? He's got style. His ship's sarcophagus apparently comes with a sewing kit. When Daniel's vest is completely torn apart, the sarcophagus doesn't just heal him, it neatly stitches up the vest too. A minor mistake, but it made me laugh. Something else that bothered me. Young Jack O'Neill. In Fragile Balance, Season 7, Episode 3, the Asgard Loki clones Colonel O'Neill with all his memories and experience just 30 years younger. Side note, this guy isn't looking too young anymore. Time flies, it's easy to forget that episode aired in 2003. Anyway, when the Asgard gives us our O'Neill back, the clone is allowed to go off and live a normal life. He enrolls in high school and starts over, and, well, that's nice. This clone is practically priceless to the US government. A regular soldier with 1,000 flight hours in fighter jets, 30 years of field experience, and the rank of colonel already costs millions in training. But this isn't just any soldier, it's Jack goddamn O'Neill, one of Earth's greatest heroes. He can fly human and alien ships, use advanced weapons for both worlds, has unique DNA, the ancient gene, and knowledge of the Stargate program. All that in a young, healthy body that could gain another 40 years of experience and become the single most qualified person on Earth. And they just let him go to high school. Yeah, alright. In The Lost City of the Ancients, we're introduced to alien armbands that turn you into a superhero. Super strength, reflexes, and speed that would make Marvel characters jealous. Sure, the bands can't be worn for long, but what you could do in that time would change the course of any war. This tech would have made humans the most powerful race in the galaxy, completely unmatched in battle. So, of course, the writers destroyed the armbands in the same episode. Once they stop working, SG-1 just leaves them behind on a Goa'uld ship. Like, it's no big deal. The Tok'ra never mentioned them again. Such a waste. And what about the ice buildup that used to happen to anyone coming through the gate?
Have you ever pulled out of a simulated bombing run in an F-16 at 8+ Gs? Well, it's way worse than that.
By the time you get to the other side, you're frozen stiff, like you've just been through a blizzard. Naked.
Do these people look like they just went through what Kowalski described? That frost, the people getting thrown across the room, and the SGC literally shaking when they dialed out, were likely caused by several things. Earth didn't have a DHD, a dial home device, like other planets, which automatically adjusts for planetary drift. Those DHDs also have built-in safety protocols to prevent dialing in unstable conditions. In Red Sky, SG-1 exits a malfunctioning wormhole, and Carter says, "We thought we'd fix that." Thanks to addresses from Abydos, Earth was able to upgrade their dialing software to stabilize wormholes. No more frostbite or people flying out like cannonballs. That's the fan explanation anyway. It's never fully confirmed in the show, and even though it makes sense, like how Apophis didn't come through frozen in the first episode, the real reason is probably simpler. They didn't want to keep applying fake frost and throwing actors onto crash mats. And, speaking of the gate itself, let's take a closer look at how wormholes work. The writers established that the gate stays open for about 38 minutes, after which it shuts down automatically. Occasionally, things like black holes or Anubis interfere and keep it open longer. And that's fine. But sometimes, the gate is dialed and just sits there for minutes while characters chat nearby. No urgency. The wormhole just waits. Other times, it shuts down the instant the last person jumps through, usually when it's inconvenient to have someone follow them. And in extreme cases, it even closes while someone's still halfway through. Why? We all know why.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
There were tons of ideas in Stargate with huge potential, and as a viewer, you often find yourself wondering, why don't they explore this more? Why don't they use that tech? Why don't they team up with the Ritu, who are invisible, technologically advanced, at war with the Goa'uld, and made the first move toward an alliance? Why? Writing isn't easy, especially for a show that ran from 1997 to 2011. Some inconsistency is to be expected, but despite these little oversights and contradictions, Stargate still holds up against modern sci-fi. Actually, not just holds up, it blows them away. It came from a time where writers couldn't hide behind flashy effects, brand names, or blinking lights. They had to build compelling, clever stories that kept people engaged. And the Stargate team absolutely nailed it. So yeah, we pointed out a few quirks here and there, but let's be honest. This might just be the greatest sci-fi series ever made.